4:46 in the morning. Excuse me, 4:47. You might be asking yourself, why would Elise be reviewing books at 4:47 in the morning? That's a great question. I'd love to tell you. I couldn't sleep. I read some really bad books this month, last couple months. I'm also sick. That's why I couldn't sleep. Mostly. Let me take a breath. I'm tired. I read some really bad books this month. Every single time I sat down to think about or try to film this video, I got really disheartened because the books were so bad that I'm like, how uninspiring is it to read a bad book and then have to talk about it? I already wasted the time reading it. I don't want to waste the time talking about it. Instead of reviewing every single book I read, I'm not gonna do that. And I'll do like a rapid fire, just absolutely not, you know, kind of montage. That's gonna bother me. Are you gonna behave or am I gonna have to put you in timeout? I feel like that's gonna bother me. Okay, well, let's just see how it goes. Hi, hello, how the hell are ya? These are gonna be the absolutely nots or the just not right nows because we're gonna talk about them in great length in another video. So ready, here we go. Real quick, no explanations. Some of them will have explanations, but we're gonna do it super quick, so fast, so quick. No, 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 no. And also a voice memo. Listen, number one, how did this author not get sued? I don't understand how they can make such close comparisons to Disneyland and not get sued. What is happening? And also, I don't like this like grumpy and then sunshine dynamic. It can be done well, but in this specific instance, I don't know, it just gives off father-daughter vibes. It's very bizarre to me. Not bad, not that bad. I just didn't like it, but I kept reading it. I can't stop reading it. Why can't I stop reading it? I'm gonna finish it. Yeah, it definitely doesn't deserve a DNF. Why aren't the other people noticing that he's in her office all the time? Basically the director of Disneyland, and she shares a cubicle space with a bunch of people, and they're like having Chinese takeout on the floor, plugging in her computer for her and resting up on desks and booping her nose with a pen. Is no one seeing this? Is no one seeing them share all of these glances or make out in a conference room? Like, no. This is a very silly book, but for some reason I can't stop reading it. No, I read it for the artistic representation and I really wanted to love it, but I just didn't. Do you know how close this was to having had the premise of a modern You've Got Mail and then it just went away? Sorry. No, this was supposed to be a slow burn. It was just slow. There was no burn. If it's gonna be that slow, I want the burn to be 4th degree, melting my skin off. I don't want skin. It was not that. The burn was about as warm as my hot breath. I reviewed the first book in this Inheritance Game series last video of book reviews. Loved the first book. I didn't like the second and third book. I don't know what to say about that. There is going to be an in-depth analysis comparing the Crossfire series to the 50 Shades of Grey series, but that's not gonna be in this video. That's later. Strap in for that. So, all right, that was great, thank you. Wild Love by Elsie Silver. I know we're not supposed to judge books by their cover, but who's not doing that? Most of the time I'm picking a book because the cover's pretty. If I was 16 years old, I would scan this in my mom's scanner and then send it to a Kinko's, blow it up and make wallpaper out of it and then live in it. That is how much I love this cover and that's how much young Elise would have loved this cover. A+ cover. It's beautiful. That's all you need to know. I rated this a 9.5 out of 10. The only point I took off was half a point for pacing. This story is absolutely stunning. It's about Ford Grant, who's a billionaire. It's like not a normal billionaire kind of trope. He's a billionaire that doesn't really care to be, moves into the middle of nowhere back to his like hometown of, what's it called? Rose Hill. But it gives me like Canada vibes. I picture like a lumberjack when I picture him. Course, obviously. Billionaire lumberjack in the middle of nowhere. Sign me up. Not really. Fictionally, sign me up. Ford Grant. Big crush. Ford has a best friend, West, whose sister is Rosie, and him and Rosie have been at each other's throats their whole life. Brother, sister kind of fighting, but also like, why is he so protective? Ooh. Incredible story. I have to take these off because that is gonna bug me. Hold on. I'm wearing my pajama pants, guys. It's definitely not like an enemies to lovers kind of story, because who's picking up their enemy from a party? I'm not picking my enemies up from parties when they need my help. I'm not helping my enemies at all. I'm not hurting my enemies, but I'm not helping them. That's a conversation for another time. Spice scale, I rated a 3.9. So close to a 4, but it's not. The spice in this book is absolutely incredible. I think I have a fever. Oh good, it's 5 a.m. now. The reason I love this book is because the story is really good. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for coming to my book review. The person that Thord Grant is and what he extends to the people in his life and the generosity and the overwhelming love that he has within himself. So much room at the table. He's like, everybody that wants to be here, come on in. And I really, really appreciate that about his character. I love that Rosie is one of those people. Their relationship is so sweet. If you were to ever need a good example of what a good Grumpy Sunshine relationship looks like, it's this book. The way that he loves people, I think about a lot. And it's one of the first times I've read a book where I walked away going like, I want to be more like that character. I don't expect to feel that way when I read these books. I just want to be entertained, basically. But to be challenged as a person is like, wow, I didn't expect that. I love this story so much. The only points I took off, it was just a half a point for pacing, which I think is honestly a common problem in a lot of contemporary romance novels, especially ones that are so long. The more I read, the longer and longer these books are getting. It's kind of like how movies are now just all over 2 hours. They don't need to be. Can we go back to like the hour and a half? Just give me a good 90 minutes solid. That's not so much a problem with this book. This book is what, 475 pages? No, 450. And it didn't feel too long. But sometimes in contemporary romance novels, 3/4 of the way into the book, you already know what the conflict is, you can see the resolution, it's right there, and also you already really know how it's gonna end. There's not a lot of like mystery there. So that's what I felt, just a smidge in this book, but much less in this than others. But other than that, I thought it was incredible. Full points across the board except for that pacing right there. This also is a part of a series. I believe the second book is coming out soon, or it is out. Is it out? No. Let's check Goodreads. Yeah, no, it's not out yet. But the next one's called Wild Eyes. Rosie's brother West. I think it's his story. And okay, this doesn't have to do with this book, but this is a note on romantic novel series in general. I don't like when it follows siblings, especially when the spice is this spicy. I am putting myself in the eyeballs and body and brain of Rosie. I am her when I'm reading it, right? That's the point of first person point of view. You're the character. And then it's spicy. And then you have a brother named West in this book. And then he gets his own book, and now you're reading about your brother having sex. I just really struggle with that. That's not an author problem, that's a me problem. It's just my preference. I understand why authors do that. It's a very natural way to keep a series moving forward. But yeah, the siblings thing, I struggle with it. So those are my thoughts on that. Not that it matters, but I've been marking where the spice happens just because I want to be able to visually see how much of this book is actually just sex scenes. Some of them, it's just like, there's 28 scenes in this book. Why? Not this one, but others. So anyways, that's Wild Love. All right, we're moving on. We're still in romance. Talk about not judge a book by its cover. Mile High by Liz Tomforde. Tomforde? Liz Tomforde. I should tell Jonas where I went. He's gonna wake up and be like, where did Elise go? Well, Elise is gone. She finally ran away. So this is another series, the Windy City series. I rated this an 8 and I rated it a 4 on the spicy scale. This probably could be a 4.5 actually on the spicy scale. It is, wow, about as spicy as you can get that I'm comfortable with. I even had to skip some scenes because it's like, ooh, that's a lot. That's a lot. The nature of the book, it makes sense because it follows Stevie and Xander's. Xander's is a hockey player and Stevie is a flight attendant, part of the crew that travels with this hockey team like long term. They kind of get on each other's nerves right away. Xander's basically commits the rest of the season to making Stevie mad, but he secretly has a little crush on her. So that's cute. And this is the first time I have ever dove into the world of like hockey romance. I had no clue it was such a big thing. It's like a whole subgenre, but you got it all. We've got it all, guys. So it's kind of like a hookup to lovers, teasing because I like you to lovers. We're just making up our own tropes today. What's the point of filming a book review at 4:47 in the morning if you can't just make some shit up? I can't put my finger on it, like why I enjoyed this book so much. I just liked reading it. It's one of those books that you're like, I don't really know. Some things I had an issue with in this book. Number 1, black pages with white text for the first page of every single chapter. I hate that. It's so shocking to my brain, and I have dyslexia, so reading a dark page with white text, my eyes cannot see that. It's basically white noise to my eyeballs. Authors out there that are printing their book like this, just know that dyslexic readers cannot read that. And maybe that's just my special flavor of dyslexia and other people aren't the same way. But every time I got to the start of a new chapter, I had to convince my brain to keep reading. I wanted to keep reading the story, but it really stopped me from enjoying the first page of every single chapter. And to be honest, I mostly just skimmed it because I didn't have the mental margin to to death. That's my biggest problem with this book, is just the way that it was printed. I'm glad we went over that. I won't say it again, but I feel very strongly about it, so just wanted to let you know. So I took a half a point off for plot. I actually very much enjoyed the plot of the main story, which was obviously Xander's and Stevie, but I took a half a point off because there was also like 12 different books happening in this one book. It's just too much. Maybe the author was trying to build out the characters of Stevie and Xander's, but at times I felt like I was leaving this book and entering another book when Xander's would go off with his family or Stevie would go off with hers. The point of like an alternating point of view, first person between two characters, is like to get two characters' points of view on the same story. I want to know their feelings about each other. I don't want to live their separate lives in the entirety of a book. Like I do, but I don't. There's a fine line between building a character out and getting to know their family and what they struggle with and what makes them them, so that when they interact with the other main character, you feel like it's got a foundation. But when you do too much of that, did you forget the story that you were originally telling? Because I don't even need to be here for this. What's happening? So I felt that a little bit. All of those to me, the plot, writing style, pacing, and overall enjoyment, half a point off. And this, again, is a part of a series, the Windy City series. It's a sibling series. I wanted a series on the hockey team, not her brother. Stop making series with siblings. Not when you're gonna write spice like this. That's my feelings on that, and I won't mention it ever again, I swear. I think you should absolutely read this, and if you don't struggle with the whole sibling series situation, then read all of them. Read all of them anyways. Okay, we're gonna get to one of my favorite books of the month. Ready? The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. We are changing gears. We're not in romance anymore, my friends. We are in mystery thriller. I have been looking for a book that felt like Behind Her Eyes, and I found it. I found it. This is a 10 out of 10. It's stunning. The writing is beautiful, inspiring. I wrote so many short stories just inspired by my time reading this book. A.J. Finn does an incredible job explaining what it is like to be agoraphobic. Anna Fox, who lives in her house alone, and she's agoraphobic, diagnosed, and she's a psychologist, and so she helps other people with agoraphobia too. Don't even read the blurb. I'm just gonna share little bits about it so that you know what you're getting into, and then nothing else. The emotion this author captures in his writing is so powerful. I went on every journey. I was frustrated with her, sad, I was happy, nervous, scared, excited with her. I was confused with her. I was there. Yep, I'm right there. I think that this is actually my journal. That is how incredible the author is at painting a picture with his words and making you feel as if they are your own words. It's just stunning. It's a stunning book. The ending is 20 out of 10. I really think you should read it. I also want to read everything that A.J. Finn writes. Oh, does it have I didn't see this till right now. I love when authors give you like a little interview at the end. The only other time I've ever seen this done was in Silent Patient. And so I don't know if it's like common in other thrillers. One of the questions is, there are sentences in this book that are as bright and sharp as splinters of broken glass. That's exactly how it feels. His inspirations were Agatha Christie, of course. What led you to your fascination with anxiety and people in crisis? Was there a character building period when you were buried deep in research? So that's what I was wondering, was like, how did he get such in-depth experiences with this character if he doesn't, like, if he's not agoraphobic himself? I'm like, who did you speak to? Like, what research must he have done? But the answer is, on my birthday in 2015, 6 weeks before I began writing this book, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Happy birthday to me. For many people, this would have signaled the beginning of an arduous journey. For me, it marked the end of one. By that point, I had struggled for more than 15 years with severe depression, which had infested and infected all aspects of my life, my relationships, my studies, my career. In grappling with it, I resorted to every treatment imaginable. Then my diagnosis was corrected and a new drug regimen prescribed. A month and a half later, I felt, if not altogether transformed or restored, at least significantly improved and liberated to pursue a creative project. That project was The Woman in the Window, the heroine of which, not incidentally, is a depressive. And 6 weeks before he started writing this book, he was diagnosed with bipolar. I find that very interesting, and as a psychologist. And so, yeah, that gave me like chills, wow. But that makes this book feel so personal. I feel like me, the author, just hugged. We're not well. I can't say any more good things about it. If I could frame this on my wall as like a memory of the time I read this the very first time, I'll never get that back. I would recommend that when you're reading, you pay attention to what you love and you don't try and read just to read. You can also do that. I don't want to tell you and put limits on how you enjoy your hobby of reading, but I think that we can get caught up in wanting to like read books because we want to say we've read books. I don't know if I'm one to talk because I review so many books every time I do this. I don't want to feed into that desire to just have books because it's cool or like it looks good, or you can say with pride that you read 20 books this month. When you read a book, you are reading it for the first time and you will never be able to read it for the very first time ever again. And sometimes things that are so special in a book are missed because you're just trying to skim it, or you're trying to get to the good parts, or you're trying to mark it as read on Goodreads. Really consciously check in when you are enjoying a book. Am I savoring this, loving it, remembering it? Because I'm never gonna get to read this for the first time ever again. Yeah, this was a good one. That was a tangent. So that is it for like thriller and mysteries. I only read one this month. I meant to read more Agatha Christie, but time just got away from me, so I'm gonna read more of her this month. I went to New York to write my book, and so I brought some books with me. And then I remembered there was this beautiful bookstore that I went into when Jonas and I were there. I was like 5 or 6 weeks pregnant when we went, so we would like walk around and then I would get really sick and have to stop in a store and just be like, am I gonna throw up? No? Okay, got it. Rally, let's go. I made it my mission to make it back there this last trip. I just wanted to get a book that was similar to the kind of book I was writing. Honestly, picked this up because of the cover. Someone Who Will Love You in All of Your Damaged Glory by Raphael Bob-Waksberg. As soon as I picked it up, like, you know, the quotes that are like the recommendations, the first thing is all caps, extremely my shit. That's why I bought the book. I didn't even open it up. I was like, this author decided for the first quote printed on the back of the book to say, extremely my shit. I was like, yeah, that's the book I want to read. This author is one of the writers of BoJack Horseman, that cartoon, which is just incredible. But as you can see, I loved this book so much. This book has my heart forever. A collection of short stories. It is art. It's art. It so deeply inspired the way that I write, and also I saw so much of my writing style in his. When I went to go find more books that he wrote, I was so disappointed that I didn't find many. I was like, man, I wish there was like 20 books I could buy from this author. Yeah, only 2. Sorry, let me blow my nose. We're getting stuffy here. And my upper lip is just like raw. This book is a 10 out of 10. This book made me feel so confident in the way that I write. You can do anything you want to do in a story, and if it feels right to you, the reader will go on the journey with you. If they trust you as a writer and you're good at what you do, you can take somebody on the craziest journey and they will follow you and they will see the vision. That is how I felt about every single story in this book. I stopped a stranger that worked at the Madewell store because I found out she was a reader, and I just shoved this in her hands and was like, you should read this. Take a picture. I was like, do you have your phone? Take a picture of it. I was so annoying. I forced her to take a picture of the book. She's never gonna buy this book. I hate when people are like that, and I was like that because I was so obsessed after buying this book. I could not stop reading it. I read it everywhere. I've read it like 5 times. I've marked it up. This is like going to be my own personal textbook for writing. It is so brilliant. It's brilliant. It's so good. For how many terrible books I read this month, I also read some very life-changing ones, and these are definitely a couple. For sure, these are top 3, and then there's one more I want to talk to you about. Bird by Bird. The blue is not a part of the cover. That's just a pen that got loose in my bag. A few things of mine are ruined, it's fine. One of them being the bra I'm wearing underneath this shirt, covered in blue ink. It's all good. Don't picture that. You're picturing it now because I said don't picture that, but really stop it. This book is special for other reasons because I was reading a book on, it's not like really a book you read, but it was like a little kind of inspiration flip book type thing. It's called Steal Like an Artist. I think I have it here actually. I'm almost positive I do. Oh, here it is. So this is actually the book I was reading. I'm not reviewing it today, but it's like a little, you know, just coffee table type inspiration. Hey, I just need something pretty for my eyeballs to look at, to be reminded that I'm not terrible at what I do. It's kind of like a devotional, to be honest with you, but not about God. Like, okay, just a lot of visuals and stuff. I really appreciate having this, and it's a great thing to kind of flip to when I need to not be so hard on myself. One of the things in the back is all these books that you should read if you're a creative person or a writer. It's Austin Kleon that wrote this book. One of the books that he suggested reading if you're a writer is Bird by Bird. If you have a pulse, if you breathe air, you should read this book. Whether you are creative or not, whether you're a writer or not, you should read this book. I picked it up because it's essentially like the instructions that she gives in classes for people that sign up for her classes of like, they want to be writers. So where do you start? And most of the people raise their hands and are like, how do I get published? Man, if all you want to do is be published, then quit while you're ahead. It doesn't feel like what you think it's gonna feel like. I really appreciate that, but she has some incredible advice. I wanna read just a couple excerpts, but I wanna read a couple excerpts that made my heart just feel like shattered into a million pieces and then regrew into the size of normal hearts. That's how inspiring some of her words are. And they're so plain, useful and practical and plain. But sometimes advice like that is just it feels so groundbreaking because you're like, why didn't my brain let me think that? Like, why did I have to hear it from a stranger? But that's the beauty about books. That's why books are so important. Yeah, but let me read you a couple quotes. You are desperate to communicate, to edify or entertain, to preserve moments of grace or joy or transcendence, to make real or imagined events come to life. But you cannot will this to happen. It is a matter of persistence and faith and hard work. So you might as well just go ahead and get started. I wish I had a secret I could let you in on. Some formula my father passed on to me in a whisper just before he died. Some code word that has enabled me to sit at my desk and land flights of creative inspiration like an air traffic controller. But I don't. All I know is that the process is pretty much the same for almost everyone I know. The good news is that some days it feels like you just have to keep getting out of your own way so that whatever it is that wants to be written can use you to write it. But she just talks so plainly about just showing up to write. If you want to write, then you need to write. You can't think about writing. Tell people you write. Dream about it. You have to actually write. I think that there's so much beauty in such plain encouragement, and you feel like you should know it, but then when you read someone say it, or like you read someone's words and instructions to do it, you're like, oh yeah, I've written some of the best short stories I've ever written out of the inspiration that I gained from reading this book. Her way with words is just so beautiful. She says another one about perfectionism. Perfectionism is the voice of the oppressor, the enemy of the people. It will keep you cramped and insane your whole life, and it is the main obstacle between you and a shitty first draft. I think perfectionism is based on the obsessive belief that if you can run carefully enough, hitting each stepping stone just right, you won't have to die. The truth is that you will die anyways, and that a lot of people who aren't even looking at their feet are gonna do a whole lot better than you and have a whole lot more fun while they're doing it. Perfectionism means that you try desperately not to leave so much mess to clean up, but clutter and mess show us that life is being lived. Clutter is wonderfully fertile ground. You can still discover new treasures under all those piles, clean things up, edit things out, fix things, get a grip. Tidiness suggests that something is as good as it's going to get. Tidiness makes me think of held breath, of suspended animation, while writing needs to breathe and move. I don't know, just the way that she talks about writing is just so beautiful, and I find it so inspiring. And as somebody who loves reading, and as somebody who is now falling even deeper in love with writing, this book came into my life at the exact right time. And I didn't know, but I've actually owned this book before in my life, and I had no idea. I was looking through pictures in Australia, and I came across two books that somebody gave me, one of them being this book. I never read it. I took a picture with the books because I was like, oh, how cool. Thank you so much for giving me these books. And I never read them. But I just think it's beautiful that somebody thought of me and gave me this book 10 years ago, and I didn't need it at that time. And then it came back into my life. Like I got this second chance at like loving this book and it being exactly what I needed and affecting my life. in such a profound way, to the point where now I get to share it with you. I think it's so beautiful. Like, a book is always gonna find you when you need it. It finds you when you don't, it'll circle back around, circle the block, and come back to you when you do. They're kind of magical, honestly. They make me feel a lot of things, clearly. That's the review. The books that I'm like, you absolutely have to read are Wild Love, The Woman in the Window, Someone Who Will Love You in All of Your Damaged Glory, and Bird by Bird. I love that these are all in different categories. That was my review. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you find books that you love from these four, or maybe some of the ones that I said absolutely not to. That's fine too. Yes, that's what I want this to be about. All of us reading different things and sharing our opinions about them, and them being the same and also very different and everything in between. Thank you so much for watching this and bearing with me through all of that, and I will see you next month. Okay, bye.